Hi, Cougar fans. Joe Pott. I'm coming to you from the weight room here at SIUE. It's another episode of the Cougar Connection, and today we're talking about high performance, the high performance of the SIUE student athletes, and I'm pleased to be joined right now by our Assistant Athletic Director for High Performance, and he is Mark Jamison. And Mark, now in your fifth season here at SIUE, you came as the head strength and conditioning coach. You have transitioned to your current role, which is the Assistant Athletic Director of High Performance. I want to kind of start there and tell me a little bit about how things have progressed, how things have changed here at SIUE and really in the strength and conditioning world since you started here.
So when I first got here, obviously head strength and conditioning coach, the mindset at that point was, just focus on the weight room, and make sure that, you're taking care of the kids in terms of, the strength portion of it. So what are we doing from a speed, power, strength standpoint? What does their fitness look like? Things like that. And it just didn't seem to fully encompass the total demands or stressors that the kids take on, our student athletes take on a daily basis. How do we fully prepare them for the demands of their sport? How do we continue to make sure that they are maintaining high robustness levels and decreasing injuries? And really what that entails is full collaboration, communication, constant communication pathways with athletic training, with sports psychology, having more of an impact from a sports nutrition standpoint, and then always involving the sport coaches. And I think that was the one thing from when you talk about going from strength and conditioning to a high performance model, it really all that is setting up, how we operate to make sure that collaboration is built in. So it was as simple as things as building a return to play protocol. So when an athlete gets hurt, it's consistent verbiage. It's a consistent message from the athletic trainer, from an athletic performance coach, that the sport coach is getting, that the student athlete is getting. And the big thing is how are we tracking and monitoring to make sure that they're making the improvements that they need to make and preparing them for what the demands of their sport are. And really that's what the high performance model is utilizing the technology that we have, utilizing the people that we have, and creating clear roles and responsibilities, so that no one is wondering what are you doing in the weight room to match what I'm doing in sports medicine or in athletic training. Are they prepared for what we're going to have them do at the field? Do we know what they're doing at the field or the court? And it's honestly as simple as that, is making sure that we're on top of all those points. Everyone's communicating well in advance. Everyone's on the same page. And honestly, we sit in the room and we make decisions together as opposed to just one domain or one area making all the decisions.
What prompted the kind of switch, or as you call it, the high performance model? Was that something that you pushed? And if so, what kind of evidence had you seen? Where have you kind of come up with this whole change?
It's been around for a long time. Honestly, Microsoft uses it, Google uses it. There's a lot of corporations that use a high performance model to just enhance the way that they operate, to make things more efficient and streamline communication and things like that. And it's been around for, honestly, a long time overseas. You see it quite a bit in the EPL and professional soccer leagues over there. There's quite a few professional leagues in America that use it, when you talk about NHL and NFL and things like that. And obviously they have more resources and more staff, but to that point, that's where it's even more important to make sure that you have this model set in place to make sure no one is left behind and everyone's involved and moving forward. So from how we implemented it here, a lot of it was just conversations with colleagues of mine in the field, at other universities that have been able to implement it. Kind of learning from what they did at the beginning, what were their failures, how did they learn from those, and how did they continue to make sure that they were making their processes as efficient as they possibly could, and just understanding, okay, what is our situation here? What's our staff situation look like? What do our facilities and resources look like? What's the time that we have with our student athletes? And I think there's the way that our athletics department is set up, this building having all the sport coaches in the same building as the athletic trainer, as the weight room, and our athletic performance coaches, we're already kind of set to really operate it in a high performance way. So it was just understanding, okay, what are the small implementations that we want to take at the beginning to make sure that it's not too overwhelming, it's not too drastic of a change, and that we can realistically make this change over time to just make things that much more efficient from our end.
You've talked about resources. You have a fantastic staff, and we're going to get a chance to meet at least some of them in a little bit. And one of the other obviously huge resources is where we are sitting today. We're in the weight room, which is, as you said, in the same building with the coaches, with the gym as far as men's and women's basketball, volleyball, the wrestling room. It's all here in the Vidalabine Center in the Lucas Annex portion of that. And one of the best things about this room, which was opened up in 2014, is the integration of technology. How much has that helped what you do, what your staff does, and ultimately what kind of results the athletes see?
I mean, it's an insane amount of benefit that we get from the technology. And, to your point, the most important thing is you'll find, a lot of different places, people have a lot of technology. They've got a lot of fancy pieces of equipment that they get to use and things like that, but it's really the staff that you have. You have to be able to understand what you're looking at, how to determine what the data is telling you. What is the process you're seeing? Are you seeing certain trends and things like that to where we need to make decisions right now that would impact what we're going to do moving forward, or are you going to continue to kind of watch those trends and things like that? So the staff is honestly probably one of the most important things when it comes to resources, is the human resource side. But from actual technology, we are extremely fortunate to have in all of our 7 racks, we have the Elite Form technology, which is our velocity-based training. And from a strength and conditioning side of things, one of the things that's always difficult to truly determine is when an athlete comes in, what's their current state of readiness? How fatigued are they? If you take basketball, for example, they might have played on Thursday, and they might have had to travel to Kentucky, and then they had to make their way back through Tennessee to play on Saturday. They made up a test on Monday that they might have missed. When they come in on that Monday, we might not know what their level of fatigue is and what their true internal stress is at that point in time. So our velocity-based training allows us to auto-regulate our training program or the intensity of what we work at within the program itself, and it's individualized to each specific athlete when they move weight. So that's been a profound impact for us, is to be able to program off of velocity. And it fluctuates in terms of what you're doing in the off season compared to what you do in the in season. But our end goal is, again, building robustness, make sure that the athletes are fully prepared for the demands of their sport. And then when they're in the in season, are we continuing to help you, put you in a more advantageous position from a speed component, from a power component, but honestly making sure that you have enough energy and reserves to do what you need to do, in your specific sport on the field or the court or whatever it is. So velocity-based training has been huge for us. We have force plates that we use, and the force plates, the great thing about that is we get a lot of information that not only applies to how the athletes are responding to the stress that we put on them, how are they improving the different characteristics of force and power, but it really works between the bridge of return to play, rehab, strength and conditioning, and then on-court work. So a lot of what we kind of understand from baseline testing, when we are returning you back from an injury, we know what your previous baseline goals were. We might have been able to see what some of those deficiencies were on your force characteristics. How do you absorb force? How do you produce force? How do you stop and redirect forces? Things like that. So the force plates really come into play not only in helping us make sure that our program is fitting your specific individual needs, but also are we putting you back into the position that you previously were, if not better, when you're coming back from an injury. So the force plates have been big. We use GPS technology with a lot of our sports, and GPS, has honestly been a game changer for a lot of our sports, because it truly tells you what the actual demands of practice were, what the demands of your competition is, or your actual games are, and we can kind of work back from that, or what we call reverse engineering. So understanding what the demands of a game are helps us be able to prepare you for those and plan accordingly during the week, especially during the competitive season, to make sure that we're again not putting too much stress on you, but again not to the point where there's not enough stress, right? Where it's this optimal loading zone to make sure that you're again as physically prepared and mentally ready as you possibly can be for competition.
We could do this forever. We could go on a long time. I want to get to one more thing as we wrap up here with Mark Jamison, our Assistant Athletic Director for High Performance, and that is really the effects of COVID-19 and what kind of things you have done, your staff has done, to kind of protect the student athletes and to change. I know that you've had to shift some locations and change the way kind of things operate. What have you done here that's helped with that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is our just daily protocols that we put in place, obviously with our COVID questionnaires, continuing to make sure that the athletes are aware of what they need to be thinking of. What are these symptoms? Is it allergies, things like that? That we have that put in place every day. We do our temperature check screens, that we have every day. Really what that does is just help make sure if you're not feeling good, you don't come in that day, right? And make sure we mitigate the risk of spread from that standpoint. But in terms of what we actually do in strength and conditioning, we have had to create satellite weight rooms. Because the end goal, again, is to try as much as we can, provide them with the exact same training program that we would regardless of COVID. It's difficult to do to also maintain social distancing protocols when you have large teams lifting at the same time. So we've had to break a lot of our teams up into lifting groups. So to be able to do that, we're fortunate, again, to have a lot of great spaces to be able to put satellite weight rooms in. So down at Cordy, where soccer plays and our track and field program competes at, there was already a weight room down there. So we just kind of refinished a lot of what that weight room looked like. Put different equipment in, kind of traveled some equipment from the VC weight room down there to be able to train in groups with our men's women's soccer team and with track and field. We put pop-up racks and a lot of equipment, a lot of our K-box, our ice or inertial flywheel equipment down at the softball indoor, so that our softball and baseball teams can train in groups. And again, that's a fantastic space, just open space, allows us to be able to do a lot of our sprint work, our change of direction work, a lot of our power development, med ball throws, along with what we normally would do on our turf area in the VC weight room. And then we also put up a weight room on the mezzanine in the basketball court area, because again, we have a lot of large teams, and we need to make sure that we give them enough space to be able to do what we would do in this space, which again is fantastic, and we have a lot of technology. But can we still provide them that program? Can we still provide them that experience while keeping them as safe as we possibly can? We've created a lot of satellite weight rooms. For us, that just means more coaching, but again, it's human resources. Everybody on our staff loves to coach. We're very passionate about coaching and watching our student athletes succeed in what we provide them in the weight room. So that's really been the biggest change for us, is just more on-floor coaching, which definitely isn't a bad thing for us. And from a programming standpoint, we've kept it as similar or as close to what pre-COVID training would look like.
Mark, thanks so much for your time. We talked a lot about resources and human resources. We're going to take a look at that right now as Colton Susan, SIUE's Director of Basketball Performance, gives us a look at high performance in action.
Hi, I'm Colton Susan. I'm the Director of Basketball Performance, and today we're going to take these guys through a little speed power workout. So what we're using right here is this is our timing gate system. It's also used for the NBA Combine. We'll get a 10-yard split and a 20-yard sprint time on that. All right, boys, here we go. We got, let's go 3 attempts. We got to start with 1 foot on the rubber, 1 foot on the green. Listen. Take it out. Zay's going to start with 1 foot on the rubber, 1 foot on the green. He wants to be as close to the rubber as possible, right? Because you want to be as fast as you can when you trip the laser, all right? Good forward lean, all of that acceleration angle we've been working on over the last, 13, 14 weeks, we want to use through here. In basketball, right, we never really get to a full 20 yards, so that 10-yard split is going to be our biggest thing, all right? You want to get that 10-yard split. That's going to determine what your 20-yard final is going to be. Accelerate all the way through that cone, walk back, and go through this door on the way back. All right, I'm going to give you guys 3 attempts. We good on that? 1 foot rubber, 1 foot green. 268. Okay, Isaiah. 268. As soon as I say that time, you can go. 261. Okay, Jack. You got 263, 268.
Oh, me and Jackson right there?
No, Jackson smoking. Let's go. Come on, Cam. Let's see if you're the fastest, Cam. 254, new high.
Come on, Dad, you can beat that, though.
Go, arm swing, pump. 267. Dad, it just ain't your day today.
Get up. There we go.
We got men's basketball pre-practice warm-up. We're going non-linear locomotion for specific change of direction work. Here we go, boys. Tuck them in. Let's roll. Divide and conquer. Lateral driving A. Here we go, boys. Here we go. Run it back, other direction. action. Here we go, boys. It's a great day to get better. Who'd I miss? Who'd I miss? I missed you, right, Zay? Yeah, there we are. Oh, my bad, Mikey. Last one, last one, last one. Here we go. Last one, best one, boys. Let's roll. Let's have a day. Let's have a day. Let's have a day on you, coach. Let's go, boys.
What a great look at our high performance in action. Thanks to Colton Susan for giving us that great in-depth look. We've got more to do here as we continue our visit with the high performance area here at SIUE. And I'm joined now by our Director of Athletic Performance, Zach Rockford. And Zach, like Mark, you've kind of transitioned a little bit coming here as a strength and conditioning coach and then sort of transitioning to your current role as Director of Athletic Performance. And that's a more all-encompassing role, isn't it?
Yes, very much so.
So in that role, I know there's a lot of things that you do. You haven't gotten away from sort of the key, which is that performance factor and that strength and conditioning. Give me an idea of maybe what a day looks like or what a week looks like for Zach Rockford.
Yeah, so typically early in the weeks we try to kind of evaluate some of our successes from the last week. Looking at Coach Me Plus, some of the athletes' wellness scores, training loads, things like that. We typically have a lot of meetings on Mondays and Tuesdays just to kind of hash out anything from last week, kind of give us a roadmap for this week with sport coaches and athletic training. And then as a staff, we also talk amongst ourselves with the RTPs, working in conjunction with Mark to make sure we have everything planned out for that athlete so that way the athlete can focus on what they need to focus on when they get in here.
For you specifically, you have not obviously gotten away from the strength and conditioning for specific teams. You work with a lot of different teams here. Give me an idea of how your approach is different based on, what sport you're working with. You work with baseball, you work with wrestling. What are some of the differences?
Yeah, absolutely. I think at the end of the day, you have to treat the human first, and then we get into the athlete, right? A hip, a knee, and a shoulder should do certain things, whatever movement that might be, based off all the literature that we know. And then the second part, or the second lens we have to look through it, is what's specific to that athlete, right? I have baseball who has to have extreme amounts of external rotation at the shoulder to then propel my arm forward. You're looking at upwards of 500 plus degrees per second in order for that arm to rotate. Well, that's vastly different than getting your arm placed behind your back and on the mat with wrestling in awkward position. So while strength's important, so is the joint's capacity to handle load. So we might train them slightly different, but at the end of the day, I think there's some prerequisites that need to be put in place. And typically we get those, or we try to get those in the first couple weeks of the training. We call that introduction block with a lot of it. So putting in movements and patterns that every athlete should be able to complete. And then really we start to individualize a program a little bit more based off some of the readouts that we get. Injury history is a big one that we use with some of our older kids. Got to keep them healthy, keep them on the playing field or the mat. And then the other part is looking at the development side. We have athletes for 4 years, so we need to accomplish the things that are important right now that end up being beneficial later on in their career. If we're just chasing strength their senior year, we probably miss something very early on, right? So it's chasing that development side as well as understanding that we need to treat the athlete for their sport and make sure we are preparing them specifically for that.
Zach Rockford, final thing for you. You were a student athlete yourself, a football player at St. Ambrose. How has that experience kind of shaped the direction you've taken, or how does it really affect, what you do?
I think it's played a lot, right? For me, unfortunately, I had a couple injuries, and I also had some success. And typically my success came from the times that I was, going to it with my mind focused, and I was consistent, and I was dialed in to the little things as well as the big things. And then the parts where I wasn't successful is the exact opposite. And so it's trying to find that medium with these athletes as far as, hey, this is important now, and I need you to focus on this. And then we'll get to some of the other stuff later. And then from the preparation side, I think there's a lot of positives and negatives everyone can take from this situation. I tried to highlight my positives, and I tried to take my negatives and turn them into something positive that we can utilize, rather than focus on that didn't work. How can we take the same situation and then what could have worked? For me, that's been a pretty big thing. Just kind of leading through, so that way we have more solutions than problems. I think we'll be pretty successful if that's the way we approach things.
Zach, I really appreciate the time. It was great to catch up with you and talk a little strength and conditioning. And as we shift here on the Cougar Connection from the physical performance side, we're going to talk a little bit about the mental performance side. I had a chance to catch up with SIUE's Director of Mental Performance, Dr. Lindsay Ross Stewart. My pleasure to be joined by Dr. Lindsay Ross Stewart. She's the Director of Mental Performance within SIUE Athletics, but also a professor here at SIUE. And we've been talking just about how the whole athletic performance model really benefits the student athlete. And it's not just athletic training. It's not just weight training. It's the whole being. And an important part of that obviously is the mental performance. And that has sort of developed over the last couple of years. I know with you leading the way. Why is that an important piece to include with the student athletes?
Well, thank you for asking that, and thank you for having me as part of this. I think the mental performance is incredibly important for athletes, and we sort of talk about it in sports really from a young age. We'll talk about athletes being mentally tough or talk about their confidence, and so we throw that language around, but we don't really necessarily talk about how athletes gain those skills. So the mental performance is really about helping athletes gain the skills they need to be able to have their best performance regardless of the situation. And it's really a misconception that athletes are just born with that ability or not. They're not, right? And so as human beings, we all need to be trained skills. And these are skills that you can use in sport, but also skills you can use in your life to really be able to handle the different situations that come up. Sports stressful, college sports are stressful. College sports in the age of COVID are especially stressful. And so how to handle those things, how to perform your best in those situations is really important. And recognizing that working on your mental game is no different than working on your physical skills, your sports skills, I think is really important for athletes to be given the opportunity to be treated holistically and for all parts of who they are as a person.
And I know that you have long focused on sort of the sports psychology part of that and the mental performance on the field and how you're successful on the field. But I imagine now, and you mentioned COVID, but I imagine now there's a lot of outside factors, and a lot of your focus, I have to imagine, is just the mental well-being of the student athlete.
I think absolutely. I mean, really all the time, an athlete is more than just an athlete, right? Athletes are people, and we work with athletes understanding that they're people first, and they have things going on with their families and their significant others and school and all these things in the outside world that affect sport all the time. But with COVID, it's heightened. And, that the requests being made on athletes are difficult. The challenges of having to stay safe and also have a college athlete student experience are a challenge. And so I think we recognize those things, and when working with athletes, really making sure we're looking at mental health and the overall wellness of a person has become even maybe more important or just more on the forefront.
There are other outside factors obviously at work here too. Within COVID, obviously, there's a lot of ambiguity. There's a lot of not knowing what's next, what the plan is. But now we're talking about social injustice. We're talking about racial inequality. We're talking about a lot of those things that are putting added pressure on the student athlete.
Absolutely. I mean, I think all people, regardless of age or what they do, understand that this is a sort of a unique time when there are a lot of pressures and a lot of things that it's hard to sort of close your mind to or get away from in the world. And so those things have all kind of culminated, and our student athletes have really done this exceptional job, many of them of sort of being on the forefront when it comes to issues of social justice on campus and really using their platforms to advocate for their beliefs and to really make change, which is really powerful and really important. And at the same time, it's also really difficult. And it's another thing that athletes are being, a part of, and that they feel the pressure to contribute to or want to contribute to, but it's just one more piece of their daily life. So, I think for the athletes, this idea of never being able to get away from all the different things in the world is similar to the average person is feeling right now. Only athletes have on top of that, this extra expectation of being an athlete and what that sort of requires.
As we kind of wrap up here, I want to talk about when I was talking to Mark Jamison, one of the things we talked about is how this model has sort of gone to this collaborative feel. And so it is not just parts. It's all together. And I know that you meet with Mark and you talk with Jerry, and all of that works sort of in concert, again, to really maximize, what you are able to provide for the student athlete.
I think a long time ago, we really, within the field of sport, every part of sport worked completely separately, right? So athletic training did its thing, athletic performance did its thing, mental performance did its thing. But really within the last 10 to 15 years, we have seen this overall high performance model become incredibly important and recognize the value of all working collaboratively with the goal of helping our athletes to the best of their ability and really helping them have the best experience they can and having the most success they can. So that collaboration becomes incredibly important. From my end, on obviously as a sports psychologist, I have confidentiality. So, I'm not sharing information about individuals or anything like that, but just being able to talk to other people to know what's the climate, what's the culture right now going on around people. How are athletes doing in the weight room? Well, that matters to them when I see them, right? And when I'm talking to them. So just being able to work together, I think, is really important. Being able to work with Mark and really be part of sort of what he's doing has been something that I think is really valuable and certainly has helped me, and I think helped our athletes see us all as one group. And so that's something that Mark really brought in, and that's been really wonderful.
Dr. Lindsay Ross Stewart, I appreciate you taking a few minutes. I know that above all, you have the health and well-being of our student athletes certainly at the forefront. We appreciate all that you do, and we look forward to having you back in the stands as well with all of our other Cougar fans.
Thank you very much. I look forward to that too.
That's Dr. Lindsay Ross Stewart as we continue our look at the high performance model here at SIUE. We've covered a lot of physical development. We've covered some mental development. What happens if you get hurt? Well, then you've got to go see the head athletic trainer, Jerry Schlemmer.
My name's Jerry Schlemmer. I'm the head athletic trainer for SIUE. I am also the athletics healthcare administrator for the university. Athletic training is kind of a misnomer. It goes back when we were founded. It was a way of distinguishing ourselves from therapists, from physical therapists. But a lot of what we do is physical therapy. We also handle emergency medicine. We also handle practice coverage, preventative care with our student athletes, those types of things. A good example is watching the NFL. A lot of what I do is similar to what the athletic trainers in the NFL do. Player goes down, first people out there, that's the athletic trainer who is ever responsible. Sometimes a team physician is there. We'll evaluate the injury on the field if it's safe to take him off the court. Take him off the court, evaluate behind the scenes, evaluate the seriousness of it, and decide, is this something that needs to go to the emergency room? Is it something that needs to go see our team physician the next day or within a couple of days? Or is this something that we're going to try to treat conservatively? We'll do the basic care in this venue. We'll take care of the athlete at that point. Our goal is to provide them the best possible care, get them back on the court or the field as fast as we can. Our goal is also to make sure that they are not they're not in danger when they're out on the field or having issues when they are competing, practicing, etc.
That'll do it for this edition of the Cougar Connection. Thanks so much to my guests as we give you a look inside the high performance department of the athletic department here at SIUE. Hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have, and we'll see you next time on the next edition of the Cougar Connection.